Guys, I wanted to take a few minutes in this video for some of you history buffs out there, and there's a very interesting place over in Glasgow, Kentucky that I thought that I would show you. I know we've all heard about a lot of the larger Civil War battlefields, for those of you all who are history buffs, but throughout the Civil War there were also a lot of smaller forts and a lot less known forts that dotted all over the land. And located in the middle of Glasgow Municipal Cemetery is, of course, Fort Williams. Fort Williams was ordered constructed in Glasgow in the spring of 1863. It was during the spring and summer of 1863 that the Union Army began to build defensive works at strategic points in Kentucky to defend transportation networks and supply depots in the Commonwealth from Confederate raids. The fort was constructed under the supervision of Lieutenant Miles McAlister. It was constructed in such a way to be able to withstand attacks from all sides. It was armed with 24-pounder and 6-pounder cannons. The fort had several names, but it was finally officially named Fort Williams in November of 1863 in honor of General Thomas Williams. General Williams was born in Albany, New York on January 10, 1815. Williams was a soldier for most of his life and began his service as a private in the Black Hawk War in 1832. In 1833, he received an appointment to the United States Military Academy at West Point, graduating in 1837. He was considered to be a brave and competent officer, but was a strict disciplinarian who often conflicted with his subordinates. In 1861, as the Civil War began, Williams was serving as an instructor at the artillery school at Fort Monroe in Virginia. Williams was assigned to General Benjamin Butler's command in the land operation against New Orleans. From New Orleans, Williams and his brigade were assigned the task of occupying Baton Rouge. In August 1862, Confederate forces under the command of John C. Breckinridge attacked the city. General Williams was killed leading the successful defense of the city and was buried in the family plot in Detroit, Michigan. To give you a better idea about the location of Fort Williams, you can see behind me here that it is directly across from where the Lowe's Home Improvement Center is. Now, as I mentioned earlier, it is built on the middle of Glasgow Municipal Cemetery. Now we're on the back side and there's not many graves on this side of the cemetery yet, but it's ever expanding. It was a series of forts were built kind of in an angle down through Kentucky into different areas down into Tennessee, and they just made preparation, and this was one of the forts that was built over in this area. Another one built down in Bowling Green, it's called Fort Lytle, down at, it's actually part of the campus of Western Kentucky University now. And if you guys are interested in me going down and visiting that fort as well and showing it to you, let me know down in the comments below. You can kind of see back behind me the reason that they use this area as the fort. You can tell very easily that it is the high ground of this area, and they can see for quite a significant way. All of this, of course, looks much different today than what it did back in the 1860s, but it's still extremely easy to see that there is a wide range of view from here on top of the hill. The city of Glasgow was garrisoned throughout the war by Union troops. Glasgow's strategic importance was due to its location. It was the crossroads of several north, south, east, and west roads, and by June 1863, a branch of the L&N Railroad. In December 1862, John Hunt Morgan led an army of 3,000 men known as Morgan's Raiders on a route through southern Kentucky. He fought various battles and destroyed railroads and telegraph lines along his route. One stop was in Glasgow, where he was met by 3 companies of Michigan cavalry. He drove out the Michigan troops and held control of Glasgow for 3 days while he destroyed Union and rail communication facilities. You can see in this picture here kind of the layout of how the fort was at that time, and there's also a couple of old photos There's one of the cannon emplacements, as well as here. And you've seen one of the cannons just a moment ago in the video. Fort Williams was built in 1863 to keep John Hunt Morgan out and to maintain Union control over southern Kentucky. It was raided and captured on October 6, 1863 by Colonel Hughes of the 25th Tennessee CSA. Many men, horses, and supplies were captured and taken to Tennessee. You can see down below me here some of the entrenchment that still remains of the fort. You know, it is a very high wall, high embankment. They built this up here, and again, it's still in some of it's the high point of this whole area. Now, according to the plaque that I was reading earlier, the Union Army had approximately 50 men stationed down around the square, the courthouse square, which if you watched my video on the car show over there, you'd seen that area as well. And on the square there is a monument to those men. Something interesting is the fact that General Joseph Lewis, who was the commander of the Orphan Brigade in the Civil War as it became known, is actually buried right there. You can see a photo here of his grave marker, and right there it is. And we'll go over and visit that as well. Here we have the grave of General Lewis. You can see there someone has put a Confederate flag, and this tells a little bit about his history and his service. You can see there that he served in the Kentucky legislature in 1850. He was brigadier general in the Confederate States Army and elected to Congress in 1870. Served as a circuit judge in 1880 and apparently a Kentucky Court of Appeals judge, 1882, and he died July 6th, 1904. This whole area has a large monument to the Lewis family. As we'd seen up there, that it pointed out inside the fort, it showed this monument, but there are several of the family members that are buried in this area. If you have watched the History Traveler, I believe that he actually has a video on the Lost Brigade during the Civil War, and this gentleman here was the commander of that Lost Brigade. See from this plaque here, it talks a little bit about a battle that was fought here on October 6th, 1863. So there is a lot of these smaller battles that you don't really hear a lot about, especially in a lot of your typical American history studies. And that's something that is unfortunately gets lost to history over time unless it's being preserved. Guys, as I had mentioned earlier, unfortunately a lot of these smaller battles, these smaller forts, have been lost to history. It is a great thing that this is one of the few that are still preserved, and I just wanted to record this to kind of show you guys this fort, to kind of you know, just to help preserve what happened here with the battle here between the Unions and the Confederates during the Civil War. And just to give you a little bit better idea of the size of the embankments, you can see back behind me as I'm walking out the gate, this is one of the lower sides back behind me. And of course, over on the other side, but it's a very neat place, you know, and as I mentioned earlier, it's literally in the middle of the cemetery, Glasgow Municipal Cemetery, and it's a pretty interesting place to visit if you are into Civil War history and like seeing some of the unmentioned forts, you know, some of the things that do not get mentioned regularly in the history books. You know, this is a neat place to stop by and visit. But guys, I hope you liked the video. Be sure to check out the rest of the videos on the channel. Be sure to subscribe. Check out the links down in the description, and we'll see you next time.